Jean Renoir was the master of traditional staging, arguably the finest filmmaker of the 30s, along with John Ford, and arguably the best European director in terms of setting scene until perhaps Luciano Visconti. Coming in fifth place after Ozu's Tokyo Story is a familiar face on all of these greatest film lists. This is the film in the top 5 with the finest screenplay, I would personally argue. Tokyo Stories is a script which would scream for a filmic realization. Kane's script is Preston Sturges more than it is either Wells or that highly overstated Mankiewicz charlatan. Watch 1933's The Power and the Glory. Go on, do it. Vertigo's is infamously oddball and only suited to the cinematic execution, and 2001 made a great novel also, but too little dialogue to read as a truly compelling, isolated screenplay. The Rules of the Game is the film of the top 5 which has the screenplay that would hold up the best if the script was read independent of the finished film. Historically, I was more of a Grand Illusion guy, but there's no denying the degree to which Rules of the Game ascends into the masterpiece tier just as effortlessly. France, right before the advent of the Second World War, the Rules of the Game intended to be an apotheosis of then French society, and had no idea how indicative it would be. It was released at the end of an era, of France which wound up far more changed than it was even after the First World War. Look at it sped up here, and note proto-New Wave qualities, that is, aspects of visual cinematographic storytelling which the Cahiers generation picked up and explored on a smaller, less grandiose scale, that directors like Becker, Offals, Bresson, and Cannes were exploring occasionally, at least, some more than others, I would gauge. Rather than framing everything as though the camera was in a theatre audience, Renoir's camera occupies an ethereal space, seamlessly moving about the players in a manner that allows immersion, directly involved in the storyline, and emphasizing developments in a manner that is conscious of film editing compared with the emerging, revealed banality of traditional stage drama. The only Renoir film discussed on the channel so far is his take on Maxim Gorky's lauded play The Lower Depths. I was comparing and contrasting in later 2021 the cinematic adaptations of that work from, in reverse chronological order, Kurosawa in The Lower Depths, Chetan Anand's Lowly City, aka Nietzsche Nagar, Renoir's Lower Depths, and Minoru Murata's Souls on the Road, the loosest adaptation of the four. Renoir's film, I feel, is indicative of cinema's distinctiveness from stage drama. If the notion of film supremacy is concrete basis by the 1930s, try Renoir's Lower Depths, consider all it can do and does, which the theatre is entirely unable. The finest of those four films might be Kurosawa's, although Anand's is pretty fantastic too. That might be the most memorable or the most unique of the four. Although Kurosawa's film is indebted to Renoir's initial effort, I'm just going to fairly confidently assume how to direct a theatre drama when undertaking the film adaptation in a traditional filmmaking pre-New Wave context. Try Renoir or try Kurosawa, but Renoir did it first and showed the likes of Kurosawa, as well as everyone else, how to do it as well as anyone ever could. In front of me I have a copy of the 1001 Movies You Must See Before You Die. First published in 2005, it says here, though this edition I believe is 2011. And I'm going to read out its section here on the rules of the game. La règle du jeu, 1939, excuse my butchered French. After the great success of The Grand Illusion, 1937, and La Bête Humaine, 1938, Jean Renoir, together with his brother Claude and three friends, founded his own production company, Les Nouvelles Editions Françaises. The NEF's first announced project was an adaptation and updating of Pierre de Marivaux's Les Caprices de Marianne. Asked to describe what his film would be like, Renoir answered, "An exact description of the bourgeoisie of our time." This is the film that was eventually titled The Rules of the Game. After completing a transatlantic flight in record time, aviator André Juril Roland Toutaine announces over the radio his disappointment that a certain someone isn't at the airport to greet him. That someone is Christine, Nora Gregor, an Austrian married to mechanical bird collector Robert de la Cheniest, Marcel Dalio. Octave, played by Renoir himself, friend and confidant of both Andre and Christine, convinces Robert to invite Andre out to a hunting party at his lavish estate La Collinière as a way of saving face. For his part, Robert hopes having Andre around might distract Christine while he settles accounts with his longtime mistress Genevieve Mila Parelli. That is what's happening among the masters. Turning to the servants, there's Lisette, Paulette Dubost, maid to Christine and married to shoemaker Gaston Modot, groundskeeper at La Collinière, who catches the eye of Marceau, Julien Carrette, a poacher who gets hired by Robert as a house servant. Renoir's screenplay brings the various amorous adventures of the masters and servants together, heading finally to the accidental shooting of Andre, sacrifice so that a corrupt social order can remain intact. A cinematic style favouring deep spaces and a highly mobile camera here reaches its perfection, as Renoir underlines the theatrical atmosphere that dominates both onstage and off. Most of the performances are flawless. Dalio as Robert, Carrot as Marceau, Dubost as Lisette, and Modot as Schumacher. Reviewers over the years have quibbled over Gregor's performance as Christine, wondering why so many men in the film are smitten with her. But perhaps that's precisely the point. Boldly, Renoir cast himself as Octave, a devastating portrait of a man who fills in the emptiness of his own life by serving as the intermediary for the affairs of others. A commercial disaster when first released in the summer of 1939, the rules of the game was cut and recut but to no avail. Soon after the war began that fall, it was banned as a danger to public morale. In the late 1940s and 1950s, the film's legend was kept alive by André Bazin and his disciples at Cahiers du Cinema, who claimed that alongside Citizen Kane 1941, Rules had been the harbinger of modern cinema, yet it was known only in a radically shortened version, 88 minutes. In 1956, it was reconstructed to almost its complete original length, 113 minutes, but it's still missing one scene, presented at the Venice Film Festival in 1959, and the rest is film history, with the Rules of the Game finally celebrated internationally as the masterpiece it is. Yeah, worth mentioning also Renoir's influence, as well as John Ford's influence on Orson Welles. We can't discount the influence of Renoir on Welles. I'm assuming, obviously Welles was an admirer of Renoir, I know, later in his life, but perhaps Welles had seen some of Renoir's films prior to embarking upon Citizen Kane. I'll have to research that later. Someone can confirm that for me in the comments if they're inclined to. Thanks again, everyone.